first competitive action of the 2017-18 edition was the Alicante Import Race, which saw Mafre send out an early warning to the rest of the fleet as they confirmed themselves as a race favourite, convincingly winning on home turf. The road to the start wasn't as smooth for Dutch entry Team Axonabel. Just days before the start of leg 1, skipper Simeon Team Point was replaced, prompting a court case in the Netherlands that reinstated him just in time.
5 seconds to go.
Leg 1 was a short sprint through the Strait of Gibraltar to Lisbon. Vestas 11th Hour Racing held on to a small lead to take the win over Mafre and Dongfeng Race Team. An intriguing start to the offshore action. Leg 2 was a classic, 7,000 miles south through the doldrums to find the trade winds towards Cape Town. The fleet set off from Lisbon heading straight into over 30 knots of wind, the first real test for the teams and the boats, an early taste of what lay ahead in the Southern Ocean legs.
I can't do 19 days of this, no one can.
Mafre once again showed pure boat speed and tactical prowess, getting south early to get around the South Atlantic High, holding off the others in a drag race to the finish line in South Africa. Leg 3, a monster. 6,500 miles to Melbourne, a first experience of the Southern Ocean for many, and the first double-point scoring leg. The fleet took off south to find the big winds and big waves. More drama for Team Axonabel. Whilst racing in 4th place, serious damage to the mast track meant the team slowed to attempt a complicated fix at sea. A painful journey to the finish line would see them finish last. A jibing battle between the leading 2 red boats of Mafre and Dongfeng Race Team saw multiple lead changes as they pushed as far south as they could to the ice exclusion zone. Mafre finally getting the better of the Chinese team, leading the charge north to a Christmas Eve finish in Melbourne. After a welcome festive rest period in the southern Australian city, the fleet set out back north, encountering another tricky crossing of the doldrums, which saw Sun Hung Kai Scallywag roll the dice and opt to cut the corner heading east to lead the fleet towards their homecoming in Hong Kong, though they didn't have it all their own way.
Hey, runner! Can you see him best? Nipper, out of the way! Can you see him? Hold, just hold! Hold! Come here, make it stern, mate. We're trying to find new ways to lose the race, though, I must say.
They held out for a fantastic first win in front of their home crowd in the heart of the city. Sadly, approximately 30 miles from the finish, Vestas 11th Hour Racing were involved in a collision with a non-racing vessel, which resulted in the fatality of a crew member from the other boat. Vestas 11th Hour Racing suffered serious hull damage, meaning they would not be able to rejoin the race in time for leg 6. The best option was to send the boat on a container ship to Auckland for the necessary repairs. A Volvo Ocean Race first was the import race held in Guangzhou. Thousands of Chinese fans came to see their local heroes on board Dongfeng Race Team, but it wasn't to be their day as they snagged a mark at the start of the race, leaving them in last place. Mafre continued their winning ways in the import series as they mastered the currents of the Pearl River to take the win. Leg 6 was almost the reverse of Leg 4 as the teams chose their routes back south to Auckland. But for the first few days of the leg, the fleet would sail in the opposite direction to where they needed to go in order to find the stronger breeze.
I think Auckland is over there and we're going, I don't know why, but KP must have a really good reason that we're going there.
Finally, the fleet turned south for an easier than usual doldrums crossing. Team Axonabel were the first through the light winds and took a slim lead over Sun Hung Kai Scallywag that they managed to hold on to all the way to the finish in Auckland to become the 4th boat to win a leg in this edition of the race. David Witt's Sun Hung Kai Scallywag were hot on their heels, finishing on the podium for a 2nd consecutive leg. Leg 7 posed a significant challenge, 7,600 miles through the fiercest ocean on the planet. The sailors knew that this leg would not be easy.
This is the kind of leg where you can lose so much, a lot of stress, and it's going to be tough.
Within days, the fleet were battling 40-knot winds, huge swells and freezing temperatures. With the fleet constantly jibing along the southern ice limits within the furious 50s, Team Brunel squeezed into the lead.
Yeah, the technical situation right now, it's I think about 1,500 miles to go to the Horn. We are in the lead, so that's the good news. We've been going very nicely the last couple of days.
On March 25th, everything changed for David Witt's Sun Hung Kai Scallywag. At approximately 1300 UTC, race control in Alicante was informed of a serious situation. British sailor John Fisher had been swept overboard in 35 knots of wind and a difficult sea state. The team conducted an exhaustive search for several hours in extremely challenging conditions, but were unable to recover their teammate. With the weather forecast due to deteriorate further, they retired from the racing to head for landfall in Chile. The news sent shockwaves throughout the fleet.
It affected us all quite emotionally. We were very close to Scallywag as a team.
I say that our thoughts are with the Scallywag crew and all John's family.
Fish as an individual had been a huge supporter of what we were doing and had really made an effort to integrate with the team and talk to all the members.
We want to give some strength to the guys on board Scallywag, the whole team of course onshore. But personally I know unfortunately how difficult it is.
And you know, he always gave me some words of encouragement.
And I hope to see them safely on shore very, very soon.
As Sun Hung Kai Scallywag headed for Chile, the other 6 teams were racing through extreme weather conditions. Mafre was suffering as they attempted to fix damage to their mast track from earlier in the leg. But then, as they approached Cape Horn, the Spanish team's mainsail split into 2 pieces. This forced them to stop in the lee of Cape Horn, make repairs, and nurse their boat into Itajaí. Vestas 11th Hour Racing rounded Cape Horn in second behind Team Brunel. The next day, disaster struck as their mast came down in the lumpy seas of the South Atlantic.
Is everybody in a safe place back there?
The team made their way to the Falkland Islands where they salvaged a jury rig, which they would use in a race against time to make the start of their next leg in Brazil. Team Brunel held fast, with Dongfeng race team snapping at their heels to claim their first victory after a disappointing first 6 legs of the race. Although victory was bittersweet for skipper Bauer Becking.
Yes, it has been an epic leg. Thank you very much for the congratulations. But I think we're a little sad in our heart, very sad in our heart. We know why. John Fisher's loss sits very deep with us. But of course, sport-wise, we sailed a very nice leg, so we're confident with that.
As the rest of the fleet were finishing the leg in Itajaí, Sun Hung Kai Scallywag had made the tough decision to keep participating in the race in John's
The best thing we can do in John's memory is get on the job, get on with it on Sunday. You know, if he was standing behind me right now, he'd be telling me to harden up. Don't be soft and get on with it, and that's what we're going to do on Sunday.
Leg 8, a push back into the Northern Hemisphere. On paper, a simple reach all the way to Newport, Rhode Island, but it would prove anything but. For the first few days, upwind conditions demanded strategic risk-taking, and it was D. Cafari's turn the tide on plastic that made the best of it, leading the fleet around the corner of Brazil with another equator crossing on the horizon.
Everybody's ready to jump in front of the others.
As the breeze shut down off the coast of Newport and with thick fog engulfing the boats, Mafre crept past Team Brunel just metres from the line. Delight for Xavi Fernandez's team, disappointment and frustration for Bauer Becking. With the scores at the top of the leaderboard tightening up, the Leg 9 transatlantic crossing with double points would be key to winning the overall title. The teams flew out of Newport and were quickly into the big winds of the North Atlantic. Difference of opinion of how to find their way around the low pressure saw a big split in the fleet. However, when the 7 boats converged, they found themselves reaching along in record-breaking conditions.
Pretty good at that angle.
5 of the teams broke the Volvo 65 24-hour distance record. However, it was Team AkzoNobel who went one step further in setting a new outright Volvo Ocean Race record. 602.54 miles were covered by Simeon Team Point and crew, an impressive feat in the one design class.
I would have bet the house you couldn't do 600 in one of these boats.
While Team AkzoNobel were writing themselves in the history books, it was the other Dutch team that were victorious, taking the maximum 14 points at the finish line in Cardiff. Bauer Becking and his team were on the charge towards the top of the leaderboard.
You know, you have good moments, you have bad moments. But I think right now, the team is in a really good fashion. I think as well, you can start dreaming about things sometimes, you can start thinking about this is actually really possible. But I think that the really good thing is we're feeling all good, and we actually think we can win this thing.
After a light and fickle start to leg 10, and with multiple lead changes, the fleet passed the top of Scotland and found themselves once more in tough conditions, blasting across the North Sea in 30+ knots of breeze.
Do you promise me these are the last days of water, getting water in our faces? It's been a tough old race for having plenty of water over the deck and lots of wind. I guess we'll try and enjoy the last of it and be glad when it's over.
Only a stellar performance from Team Brunel would see them with the chance of the overall win in The Hague. And incredibly, they cruised past first Dongfeng Race Team and then Mafre. The once invincible reaching speeds of the Spanish boat had been overcome. Finishing in the Swedish city of Gothenburg once more on the top step of the podium meant 3 teams were now tied at the top of the leaderboard on 65 points. Over 44,000 miles of racing completed, and it was all to come down to the last 900-mile sprint to the ultimate destination, The Hague. The order the top 3 would finish their leg would be the order they stand on the final podium. The final leg was to include a rounding of a waypoint in the city of Aarhus. Dongfeng Race Team were first to round with Mafre in hot pursuit. A special moment for Danish flag Vestas 11th Hour Racing, rounding in third to the cheers of the home crowd. The real challenge for the final leg would be the decision of which way through the traffic separation zones to take. Either stay offshore playing the shifts or hug the coast of the Netherlands in the hope of better breeze. Dongfeng Race Team were the first to lay their cards on the table, bearing away and heading towards the coastal option. But Team Brunel and then Mafre opted to stay offshore. The Chinese boat knew that in the short term they would lose miles to their opponents, whilst Team Brunel and Mafre were also concerned that Dongfeng Race Team would have the favourable conditions in the final miles of the leg. An agonising final night, not just for the 3 teams, but also for their fans, as over 9 months of racing would boil down to the final nerve-wracking miles. Until just 6 miles out, no one knew who would prevail and emerge victorious. The final mark of the race saw Dongfeng Race Team pass first, just 3 miles ahead of Mafre, and with a huge flotilla of boats surrounding them, they crossed the final Inmarsat finish line with emotions running high. Charles Cordrelia realising his dream and etching the name of Dongfeng Race Team on the trophy after skippering his team to victory in the 2017-18 Volvo Ocean Race.